18.4, finding missing angles now. So last section was finding sides. Now we're going to find missing angles. Now obviously if you know one of them's 90, if you know the other one you can just subtract from 180 and find this other one, but now we don't really know what this is. So that's a number 9. So we're going to have to use what we call an inverse function to solve for the angle. So let me set this up for you. So initially, from like last time, the last section, if you have the sine or any trig function of the angle, okay, let's say whatever angle, we'll just say angle A, that's going to equal the ratio. For example, like the sine of, say, 27 is going to equal, and how we set it up, remember, like x over 10 or whatever. Let's say, I don't know, I'm just making up some numbers, okay? So if you have the sine of some angle is going to equal a ratio of sides, okay? And so if one of those three pieces is missing, then we can solve for it, like we did last section. Now, if the angle is missing, okay, now we got to solve for that angle. But with this right here, the sine of the angle equals the ratio, okay? So the other side of that is, if you take the inverse, that's to the -1 power, the inverse of the ratio, you're going to equal the angle. So this is what we're going to be doing. Okay, and that is on your calculator. The inverse sine is the second function sine, or cosine, or tangent. The little blue, or on whatever calculator you have, it would be the second function sine, second function cosine. Okay, so we're going to set up the ratios and then solve using the inverse. So if this is my angle, let's write this down. I have the side opposite and adjacent. So that means I have to use the tangent function. So if I write it down, tangent of the angle that I don't know is going to equal 9 over 20. All right, so since I don't know the angle, but I do know the ratio, I can set up the inverse of the ratio, and that's going to give me the angle. Now, this is where you have to have your calculator in degree mode, because your answer is going to be an angle in degrees. And if it's not in degree mode, then your answer will be wrong, and you'll not know why. So make sure you check that first when you pick up your calculator. So on my calculator, I'm going to go second, what am I using, tangent? Tangent, okay, and then the ratio is 9 over 20, so that's just a fraction, 9 divided by 20. And I'm going to hit enter, and that's going to give me the angle, which is 24 point, we'll say, 23, or we'll just say 24.2 degrees. Oh, 23, sure. And since since this is an angle, then you use the, the symbol for the degrees. Okay. Now this one, what do we have? We have the angle. Well, we don't have the angle. I mean, we're looking for that angle. We have this side, which is adjacent to that angle, and this side, which is the hypotenuse. So adjacent and hypotenuse, that's cosine. So we're going to set up the cosine of the angle equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Since we're solving for the angle, we can rewrite the inverse cosine of 17 over 32 is going to equal my angle in degrees. So calculator. Second cosine. 17 divided by 32. Enter. 57.9. Okay. So 57.9 degrees would be that angle. Okay, we'll just keep doing kind of the same thing over and over here. So from this angle, I have the side opposite and the side adjacent. So that's tangent. If you want to skip the step, you can just go right to saying, okay, Since I'm finding the angle, I'm going to go inverse tangent. Write down the ratio, opposite over adjacent. That's going to equal my angle. If you're not there yet, then you can go about writing it like we did the first two. Write out the original ratio, and then from there, write the inverse. Okay, so what's the inverse tangent? So inverse tangent, second tangent, 13 divided by 18. That gives me 35.8 is what I'll write down, 35.8 degrees. I'll just round to the 10th, I guess. From this one, here's my angle. The side I have is opposite and hypotenuse. That is the sine function. So sine, since I'm finding the angle, I'm going to go inverse sine of the fraction or the ratio, 21 over 28, which is the side opposite over the hypotenuse. That's how I knew to use sine, is because I knew that ratio was the sine ratio, opposite over hypotenuse, starting from this angle. That's going to equal my angle. So take out your calculator. Second, sine, 21 divided by 28. Enter, 40.6, we'll say, degrees. Don't forget the symbol. Okay. This one now has probably a couple of parts to it. Let's see, I want to find angle CDB. CDB. So I'm looking for this angle right there. Okay. Maybe we'll just call it, well, it's named, but here we go. So let's see, if to find that angle, I need one more side on this triangle to the right here. I need one more side. I have one of the sides, so I either need BC or I need BD. I think I can get BD from the triangle here on the left, because here I have an angle and I can solve for the side, just like we did in the last section. So let's do that. From this angle, the side opposite is what I need, and I have the side adjacent. So that's tangent. So I'll set it up as tangent of 47 equals the side opposite, I'll call it x, I guess, over adjacent. Cross multiply, x times 1 is x. So the tangent of 47 times 18, that's going to be, what, 19.3? Okay, so that becomes this side right there, 19.3. So I'm going to write it in. Okay, 19.3. So now I can find this angle because I have a side here, 7, and I have the side here, 19.3. And so the relationship from this angle, this is adjacent, and that is hypotenuse. So that means I'm using the cosine function. So cosine, or inverse now, because I'm trying to find the angle, cosine of the, I'll write it really small, CDB. Cosine of the angle is going to equal, back it up, inverse cosine of the ratio adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, inverse cosine of the ratio equals the angle, and the angle is angle CDB. So on my calculator, second cosine, 7 divided by 19.3, close that, enter, 68.7. So this should equal 68.7 degrees. Okay, example 6. A fireman leaned a 36-foot ladder against a building. Ladder. I'm assuming we're making a right triangle. 36-foot ladder. If he placed the ladder 7 feet from the base of the building, so 7 feet from the base of the building. Okay, 7 feet. What angle is formed between the ladder and the ground? So that's the ground and the ladder angle right there. So we'll solve for the angle. So from this angle, this is the side adjacent, and this is the hypotenuse. So that means we're using cosine. So inverse cosine fraction 7 over 36, adjacent over hypotenuse, that's going to equal the angle. So on the calculator, second cosine, 7 divided by 36, enter, 78.8. So that angle is 78.8 degrees. All right, so your assignment is doing this exact same thing a few more times. Okay, same idea. So refer back to your notes. All right.